Good evening. I will reconvene into open session this meeting of the Arlington Independent School District Board of Trustees for November 6, 2025, beginning at 7:17 p.m. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Our board meetings are open to the public, and while we welcome everyone, we appreciate your participation in public education. While our meetings are open to the public, this is a meeting, and we have business to conduct. Disruptions will not be permitted unless you're a little one. Anyone who disrupts the meeting or speaks when others are speaking may be asked to leave or be escorted out by security attending the meeting. We welcome civic input, but insist that we remain respectful and civil. Thank you for your cooperation. We'll begin our meeting with the pledges, led by West Elementary student Naya Tucker.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, Naya. You may be seated. Please join us for a moment of silence. Thank you. To learn a bit more about the student leading us in the pledges tonight, I want to turn it over to our Chief Communications Officer, Tina Northington.
Well, good evening. I hope you all enjoyed getting to know Naya a little bit more while she said the pledge to us this evening. In fact, she is a 6th grader at West Elementary. Her older brother is a sophomore, Martin. He says he wishes he could be at the game. We said that would happen momentarily. So I know their family is really excited to be here tonight. And Naya also told me a little bit about her adventure in being in public education here in Arlington, and that at one point her family did decide that maybe they wanted to explore other opportunities, but she came back and she has found herself a great home at West. And so we're so happy you're here. And one person that she wanted to give a special shout out to is Miss Scott, who has helped her understand not only science and math, but also how to learn in a creative way without being bored. And I thought that was so unique that you shared that sometimes you can space out while you're learning things, but that this teacher goes above and beyond to make sure she's engaging you at all times. So shout out to Mrs. Smith. In her spare time when she's not learning science and math, she's actually probably doing some acrylic nails. So she does acrylic nails on herself, and I told her, don't look at my nails, but that I would be in line when she's ready to have a customer. She's also a part of the West Singers Choir Group, where she has a boastful voice, and we're excited to hear her probably closer to the holiday season when they do some holiday stuff. And she also loves the color pink, if you couldn't tell by her pink glasses and everything pink. So we know that there's a lot going on that she has in her future. We're excited to come back and celebrate your achievements here. We introduced her to one of our honors and recognition students this evening, and I know that just gave a spark in her eyes. So you never know why you might be coming to these board meetings. Tonight, we were glad you could join us for the pledge, and we're happy to see you both here in the future.
Thank you, Naya, and thank you, Ms. Northington. Now it's time for our recognitions. After our appointments this evening, we will take a short recess to have pictures with our honorees here in the boardroom and in the lobby. Leading the recognitions portion of the agenda tonight, I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Northington.
Thank you so much, Vice President McMurrow, Dr. Smith, and members of the board. This evening, we're actually going to start honors and recognition. We're excited to have some friends with us from Wood Elementary School performing a flag routine to John Philip Sousa's classic march, The Stars and Stripes Forever. Under the direction of music teacher Kelly Crump, Sousa, known for the March King, composed this patriotic piece in 1896, and it remains the official national march of the United States of America. Tonight's performance will capture the spirit and pride of this American classic and is also part of their annual Veterans Day program presented each year by their 3rd graders. Please join me in welcoming the students of Wood Elementary School. Our students are gifting some of our flags for our board members. We know we have 2 that are not with us this evening, and so we have 2 for them. And we want to thank you again, students. And remember, again, the Veterans Day Parade, all of our high schools will be marching in that parade that evening. Thank you so much to our students from Wood Elementary this evening. As we transition to the next stage of our honors recognitions, I'm going to ask our board members to join us down here so we can actually move to our honors portion. Now that we're all in place, I would like for everyone to turn their attention to the screen for a special video on Arlington ISD Student of the Month for November, Arlington Collegiate High School senior Giovanni Roman.
At Arlington Collegiate High School, students have a great opportunity. And for our students to really take a full advantage of an early college high school, they have to be willing to work hard and have a great attitude. And Giovanni Roman is exactly that kind of student.
Giovanni is inspiring. He has completed his associate's degree at TCC already, and he's currently taking classes at UTA.
I'm excited about his future in the medical field, and I'm excited about watching him apply for scholarships and become admitted into colleges.
I've known Giovanni ever since his freshman year when he took my sophomore English class. Yes, he was a freshman in a sophomore English class, and our relationship just continued to grow throughout the years here.
I've witnessed him encouraging and helping his peers on numerous occasions. If we are in need of volunteers for anything on campus, he's one of the first students to help us out. He does everything with excellence and a positive attitude.
He wants to do great things. He leaves no excuses. He's accomplished more in scholarship money than anybody has going into their senior year that's gone to Arlington Collegiate High School.
He's such a sweetheart, and he's been through so much. He wants to become a doctor because when he was a young boy, he went to go and visit his uncle who's a physician in Mexico. He was scared of needles and knives and doctors, anything to do with medicine, but his uncle said, "Come on, let me show you it's nothing to be afraid of." And he fell in love with it. And he's been chasing that dream ever since, and he wants to make his family proud. He wants to make our community proud, and he's going to. He already has.
He's one of those students that I'm really excited for 10, 15, 20 years down the road, because I have no doubt he'll have success, and he'll have big success because he's just that kind of young man.
I'd like to invite Giovanni to come up. He's going to shake everyone's hand and receive an award, and then he'll have some remarks for us. But I think it's important that we all get to shake this young man's hand. He will be a doctor someday, I'm pretty sure.
I'm excited for that. I'm probably going to need your services along the way. I hope you're in Arlington. Giovanni, it's my pleasure as superintendent of Arlington ISD to hand out these awards to amazing students in our district every month that not only represent what we aspire to be each and every day as adults in our system, but what we want for each and every student in our system. You go above and beyond to positively impact not only your campus, but your community as well. And you do it with class, you do it with grace, and you do it in a way that makes all of us proud. So thank you for representing Arlington ISD so well. Thank you for representing your school so well, your family, and your community. Congratulations on being our Student of the Month.
Good evening, Superintendent Smith and Board of Trustees. Thank you for everyone who nominated me for this huge honor, especially Mr. Krieger, Ms. Cole, and Ms. Seeley. Firstly, I would like to thank my mother for teaching me how to be responsible, studious, and the value of giving back. She has always supported me and encouraged me throughout my life. Te quiero mucho. Also, I would like to thank my father who instilled in me the importance of hard work and the value that a great education can have on my future. I would also like to take a moment to thank all the amazing teachers and staff at Arlington Collegiate High School for providing me a great environment and community that has allowed me to thrive both academically and personally, such as Ms. Kless for being such a great teacher, a motivator for me, and building my confidence on my ability to write well. Ms. Seeley for helping me with tough decisions as I prepare for the next chapter of my life. Ms. Mims for being such a great help with me by helping me review my scholarship essays. Mr. Fulcher for being a dedicated sponsor and helping us with our STEM club. Dr. Haggerty for presenting me with numerous scholarship opportunities. and Mr. Silos for being such a great student council sponsor and helping us with our school events. I would also like to thank my fellow student council officers for contributing great ideas and making both our community and volunteering events fun. Lastly, I would like to thank Arlington ISD and Tarrant County College for providing me with the opportunity at ECHS to earn both my high school diploma and associate's degree simultaneously. The lessons I've learned from my school will help me pursue my dream of becoming a doctor. Thank you.
We're going to have a group photo. We're going to take a group photo with Spence right here.
Do you want to join us?
I was hoping the microphone wouldn't roll away here.
All right, here we go. 1, 2. Okay. All right, here we go. 1, 2.
Thank you so much, Spence. Appreciate it. We have one more honors and recs this evening. If we can stay right here. Ms. Fowler's going to sign something for us, and I'm sorry, not Ms. Fowler, sorry. Ms. McMurrow will. That's a quick signature. All right, and I'm going to tell you about our Martin High School senior, Kerragan Johnson, who's joining us this evening. She recently, get this, guys, represented the United States at the World Para Athletics Championship. Kerragan began her track journey in 6th grade, and 6 years later, she is still running just as fast. So if you can imagine what she was like as a young girl, I'm sure that she kept her mom and dad very busy. This is now carried all the way to the global stage. This summer, Kerragan earned her place on Team USA after an impressive performance at the National Championships in Oregon, where she competed in both the 200 and the 400-meter events. Her hard work definitely paid off, qualifying for her to represent the United States as the World Para Athletic Champion in New Delhi, India. Competing against the best para athletes in the world, Kerragan placed 6th in the 200-meter and 8th in the 400-meter, an incredible achievement that not only reflects your dedication, but also your passion for what you do and what every step means to you. This experience has strengthened your determination and passion for the sport, I've heard. You continue actually to run and train at high school to prepare for the future Paralympic competition. Your journey demonstrates our district's program and resources and how we're able to support you. We were happy to have our local news feature Kerragan's story, and actually the national news, CBS National, picked up her story as well. So if you want to just take a glimpse into a day of training, please look at that story. It was a phenomenal story the reporter shared with you and the team that we have that helps support you. So we're excited, and we invite you up because we want to honor you tonight for being a part of the United States team at the World Paralympic Championship. Come on up, Kerragan. Congratulations. We're following your story, so we're following your story. Thank you so much. And of course, she'll be at graduation, so you guys all be ready to shake that hand once again. So this concludes tonight's honors and recognitions. Thank you so much.
At this time, we are going to move on to registered speakers for agenda items. Ms. Crossnow, do we have any registered speakers this evening?
Vice President McMurrow, we do not.
Thank you. With no speakers registered for our appointments agenda item, we will proceed to the ratification of our administrative appointments for Pope and Spear Elementary. Dr. Smith. Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have a motion to ratify the appointment of the individual discussed in closed session?
Second.
Motion from Mr. Mike. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Wilbanks. Second from Mr. Wilbanks. Ms. Richardson is joining us virtually this evening, and Ms. Richardson, I'll take you in just a minute. Trustees in person, please go ahead and vote. And Ms. Richardson, if you would please let us know your vote by unmuting.
Yes.
Thank you, Trustee Richardson. All present in favor? None opposed? The motion passes. Dr. Smith?
Thank you, trustees. It is my honor tonight to introduce two new teammates on our administrative team throughout the district. First, our new assistant principal at Pope Elementary. Please welcome Sharice Law. I knew that was going to be loud when I saw them all back there. Ms. Law brings a wealth of instructional leadership experience with a strong background in curriculum development and coaching across multiple districts. Her service as both an instructional coach and assistant principal demonstrates her commitment to teacher support, student growth, and academic excellence. With advanced training in curriculum and instruction, she is well positioned to making a meaningful impact as an assistant principal at Pope Elementary. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. To President Chopper in his absence, to the members of the board, and to Superintendent Dr. Smith. Thank you for this amazing opportunity to serve as the assistant principal at Pope Elementary. My journey to Arlington ISD has been purposeful and divine. God did this. On Saturday, June 7th, I attended Arlington ISD's job fair with the intent to support my oldest daughter in finding her a teaching position. I had no idea that that job fair was intended for me. I learned quickly that Pope needed an instructional coach. I introduced myself and the connections were made. I knew that day, leaving that table, that I wanted to work here. This is an amazing community, and I'm so thankful for this path and this new journey. Thank you to my wonderful husband, Dexter Law, to my two beautiful daughters, Kaylee and Madison. You all are my strength. A special thank you to my principal, Miss Rayleigh. Oh yeah. She saw value in me and allowed me to explore the possibilities at Pope. Thank you for the entire Pope family. They are so supportive. You continue to show unprecedented support to me, to our students, and our community as a whole. With each other, Pope, the sky is the limit, and I am so grateful to be a part of this expedition. Y'all, it's time to level up. Again, to everyone here at this community, thank you.
Trustees and guests tonight, if you will now join me in welcoming our new assistant principal at Spear Elementary, Diana Schemmerhorn-Gonzalez. Diana brings a strong combination of instructional leadership, mentoring, and classroom experience with experience in language instruction and in curriculum development. Her experience as a level lead, mentor, teacher, and instructional specialist reflects a commitment to teacher growth and student achievement. With a master's degree in educational leadership, she's well prepared to contribute effectively as assistant principal at Spear Elementary. Diana, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, President Chopper in his absence,
AISD board members, and Superintendent Dr. Smith. I'm here tonight to share my deep gratitude for everyone who has played a pivotal role in building my leadership capacity. I am so honored to serve as the next assistant principal at Spear Elementary. Thank you to Dr. Morales and Principal Zavala for believing in me and selecting me for Spear. To the principals and APs in the district who have let me shadow and learn, thank you for your time and your wisdom. To my mentor, Ms. Rosa Mitchell-Orozco at Venture Newcomer Center, thank you for your guidance. To my family who's here with me tonight, my in-laws who could not be here, my world languages team, Priscilla Blanton, and especially my husband, thank you. Your support means everything. I am excited to begin this journey and look forward to serving the Spear community with passion and commitment. Thank you.
Congratulations, Ms. Law and Ms. Gonzalez. We will now take a brief recess to celebrate those receiving recognition tonight. I invite trustees and our honorees to join us for photos. Please gather on your right. Trustees, please gather on your right side of the room. Is that still correct, Ms. Northington? Thank you. Trustees, let's aim to be back at 7:52. It is 7:56 p.m. and we are back from recess. The next portion of our meeting is the open forum for agenda items. As stated and on the posted agenda, members of the public who desire to address the board regarding an item on this agenda are required to register at www.aisd.net/board-meeting-speaker-request no later than 3 p.m. the day of the board meeting. Ms. Crossno, do we have any requesters registered?
Vice President McMurrow, we do not.
Thank you. At this time, we will move on to committee and staff reports. We'll now turn it over to Dr. Smith.
I believe that we have a governance committee report first for Ms. Haynes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, thank you.
The governance committee met on the 27th, is that correct? And that committee is comprised of myself, Trustee McMurrow, and Trustee Richardson. And the majority of that meeting was spent visiting with our partners at Strive, talking through and identifying potential topics to focus on for an interim legislative agenda. We then continued reviewing various policies. So, and our next meeting is end of this month, I believe. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Moving on to report item B, we will now have our 2019 bond update report. Dr. Smith.
Trustees, I would like to invite Mr. Kelly Horn, the esteemed Mr. Kelly Horn, to come on up and update us on the progress on the 2019 bond. I want to publicly thank Kelly. One of the things that I find very reassuring, Kelly knows the ins and the outs of our facilities across the district like I've never seen before in the district, and he's done a really good job navigating current bonds and what we're doing with the 2019 bond, and also starting to talk about how we explore needs for the future. So there's a lot on his plate, and he's done a really good job at that, and I wanted to make sure I recognize that tonight. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, sir. Vice President McMurrow, it's a little hard to say. We practiced that today, by the way. And members of the board, Dr. Smith, did we? We practiced that. So, but it's different. It's hard to say. So, but anyway, but thank you. We'll jump right into our 2019 bond update report, and I'll move to the next slide. If you remember from our last update, there was some questions about how we had this particular graph set up, or this particular chart set up. And so we made a few changes, hopefully that will reflect a little better where the money's at and so forth. And that centers really on the last column, the allocated column. If you remember previously, we had a remaining column, and we had a column that that showed available monies. This now is a little bit more simplified, and we show the amount of money that's still allocated to projects, but that's not yet encumbered. And so I'll bring up a couple of projects in a minute that highlight the amount of money that we still have left to be allocated for projects. And then at the bottom of this particular chart, you'll see that we try to simplify a bit more the miscellaneous cost and additional proceeds that we have available for us. So it's still the same, similar numbers. You see the bond issuance costs, which are now pretty well steady because we've issued all of our bonds at this point. And then the projected interest and arbitrage liability, that number may, as I always tell you, may go up or down a bit between now and the end of the bond, but it should be pretty close. But our interest right now is approximately 60 million, or approximately 61 million, I should say. So when you do the math, that looks at this point like we'll have approximately $34 to $35 million in interest earnings available towards the end of the bond to be allocated for other projects or other purposes that you might deem necessary. So, and those numbers as of October 1. It's starting to get really busy. You're going to see here in a bit, a lot of the Phase 4 and Phase 5 work is underway, and actually quite a few projects are complete, but there's a total of 104 projects active right now across our 6 project managers and our senior project managers, so they're getting very, very busy here at the end of the bond. And I'll detail this a bit more here in a bit, but at this point, just about every project we have is moving from the design phase into bidding shortly, and then we'll have quite a few projects. Most all of Phase 4 and Phase 5 projects will be under construction as of this summer and carry throughout the next year. In Phase 1, of note here, Glaspie and Martin are still in the construction category, but we're playing games at Glaspie, and the Martin work is pretty well complete. What this really is about is finishing up our softball field and making sure that's ready for the girls to play in the spring. So that's why they're still sitting in that construction column. Otherwise, our Bowie and Seguin softball fields are in bidding right now, and we'll be bringing those projects, or those particular projects, for approval soon, so that we can start that work and have those ready for next year. They won't be ready for the spring season this year, but for the following. In Phase 2, of note here is the Wildman Field project, and I'm going to talk about Wildman and Cravens, but Cravens is in the next slide. Those two bid this week, actually, and we hope to bring those to you for approval at your December meeting. And those will begin shortly after Christmas. And those are long projects, right? They'll go on concurrently, but we had to wait until we finished the Glaspie project to start these two. And they will continue through and be ready in and about June of 2027, and we'll play our first games in August of 27 that year in both fields. And I mentioned Cravens Field already here, and so I won't go over that again, but the Little, Miller, Key Pope, and Spear projects are wrapping up at this point in time. Lamar is just kind of really getting started. It's about a 2-year project. Our high schools most of the time are. They carry over 2 summers. And then I mentioned our Phase 4 projects. Of note here, the bigger projects in this particular group are the Wimbish, Hill, Young, and our Workman projects, and the Swift project is in bidding now. Those projects will receive pretty sizable renovations, I should say. And most notably, Hill is probably the largest, Hill and Young. Otherwise, those other projects, though, while they're a little bit smaller, they're moving out of the design phase right now and getting ready to bid as well. So we'll have most everything in Phase 4 under construction by the summertime. And the same thing for Phase 5. These are much smaller projects towards the end of the bond, and most of the time it's because these schools are our newer schools. They may have a single trade, I've mentioned that before, maybe replacing carpet or painting the entire building, maybe replacing some HVAC and that sort of thing. So all of these projects will move out of design through the spring and into construction. So by the time we have one of these reports later in the summer, we should see just about every project we have under construction in some form or fashion. And I was asked today to make sure I give you a quick update on the marquees, because that's been a question. We have 3 schools right now that are in the process of getting ready to construct, and that's Corey and Peach, and I'm going to forget the third one. I'm sorry, I usually remember that. And see, Dr. Smith set me up like a bowling pin, right? But it'll come to me yet. But we have 39 other campuses that are all coming out of design as of about February, and they'll begin the construction during the spring. So I don't know that we'll have all those marquees in place before the start of the next school year, but by the time we get to Christmas, hopefully we'll have them all wrapped up. So you'll see those popping up at all the remaining schools that don't currently have one. And that's high schools and junior highs included. And then finally, our update on hub participation. I always carry you straight to the right of this column, the 24.24% number out there. That's a slight downturn, just about a half a point lower than it was last time I brought this to you. And if you remember, that kind of goes up and down as we go through these bigger projects. But again, our goal is very clear. We always want to be above 20% in our bond program, but internally we're shooting for between 25 and 30 as we finish this up. And so a lot of these later projects will actually gain a lot of ground on those because we usually get really good hub participation on these smaller projects. And with that, I'll open it up for any discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. Do I have any trustees with questions? Ms. Richardson, do you have a question? Just checking on you. Okay. I don't think we have any questions at this time. Thank you, Mr.
That third school is Wood, by the way.
The marquee. Okay.
Just, we had a little show. Okay, but anyway, thank you all very much. I appreciate
Thank you. It came to you.
It came to me.
Thank you. Up next is agenda item C, Academic Calendar Committee Report. Dr. Smith.
I'd like to invite Dr. Stephen Wirtz up. He's going to give you an overview of process. I want to be clear, there is no action taken tonight. Our goal is to make sure you know and understand what we're going through to develop the calendar before we end up giving you an update and bringing it to you for potential consideration in the future.
All right, good evening, Vice President McMurrow, members of the board, Dr. Smith. I'm here this evening actually with Ginger Cole-Leffel and Sarah Mahoney to go over our process that we've engaged in to develop the draft calendars for the 26-27 school year. As you know, in the past, we have gathered a committee of stakeholders from across the district to design a calendar that's intended to not only boost academic achievement, but to do so by also leaning into providing more enriched professional learning to each of our staff members. So I'm going to turn the time over to Ginger, and she's going to walk you through the process and where we are and where we're going next.
Thank you, Dr. Wirtz. Good evening, Vice President McMurrow, members of the board, Dr. Smith. We appreciate the opportunity to update you on the development of our 26-27 academic calendar. Please forgive the typo up there. It's not a good way to start out the presentation. As Dr. Wirtz said, we have gathered a diverse set of stakeholders across the district and the community that includes campus administrators, teachers, and parents and students, as well as representatives from our organization and our community. I want to express gratitude to them for engaging in this process with us this year, as well as my co-facilitator, Sarah Mahoney, Interim Director of CTE. As Dr. Wirtz stated, the charge continues and is an extension from last year to prioritize student learning as well as professional learning in our upcoming year's academic calendar. We explored some additional ideas as we were discussing the upcoming year's calendar, including what does it mean to continue to prioritize professional learning in that calendar, what have been our successes so far, and representatives from the community were able to provide their input from their respective communities on how that's going so far and provide input on where to situate those days in the future. We also looked at parent conferences, where those are placed, and again, strategically putting those in the calendar so that we have the opportunity to make space for parents and teachers to connect formally. We explored holidays and where they fall in the calendar and the impact that has on our academic calendar, as well as testing calendars. What you see on the screen now is the timeline. We actually launched our committee in September, and started our work then. We've had a few meetings to do some learning, do some studying of how things are currently going, the feedback that we've heard anecdotally from the community, and begin to draft some possible calendars. You can see in the picture there one of our students from our leadership, as well as our teachers, engaged in those meetings. Currently, we are gathering community input via the Thought Exchange about the current academic calendar and how that's working for families and staff members. And then we will use that feedback in December, and throughout January, we'll gather some additional feedback as we send out some drafts to the community, and then bring a final proposal for board action in January. Some of the things that were included in the process, in addition to the charge, is being clear about our scope of work so that we could be really focused on our time. And so, for example, there's a lot of conversation around the successes and the challenges around the professional learning days and how those are designed. But we talked about that not necessarily being a function of the calendar committee, and our charge is really to place those days well in the calendar so that they make sense for extended and ongoing professional learning. As mentioned, we did some learning, studying, and reflection. We iterated on the calendars, and we engaged in several rounds of challenging one another around some of the ideas that we had for the upcoming calendar, and ultimately coming to some consensus about some parameters we wanted to stay within for the upcoming school year. In addition to those processes, we also had some considerations to keep in mind around policy and legal requirements. So listed here are the minutes requirements for student instruction, as well as teacher contracts, and some legislation that also indicates when we can start school and when we can schedule our last day. This also includes planning for emergency closures like bad weather. And then we layered in that element that we're taking advantage of this year with the staff development waiver, which allows us to replace some instructional minutes with professional learning. And then we also considered the new parent conference legislation that asks us to provide at least 2 opportunities to conference with parents throughout the year. Some additional assumptions under which we were working is that we were going to strive for ending school before Memorial Day, because that is very popular in our community and makes a lot of sense for families as they're planning for summer. We also received feedback that it was a positive thing not to start school on a Monday, and so we took that into consideration as well. We wanted to line up our spring break with Tarrant County College, who we have relationships with for many of our programs. And then you can see there the list of historically considered holidays. These often show up in our calendar as days off. And I wanted to make a note that we also took into consideration for the summer calendar Juneteenth as well as Independence Day. These represent the questions that we are asking via the Thought Exchange. So the first one there has gone out already via the staff newsletter and the parent newsletter. And there are already a couple hundred, I think maybe 300 engagements on there, with it just being out for the day, and over 10,000 ratings. So we're excited to dig into that feedback and use it to go back and re-inform our drafts. And then, as mentioned, when we get closer to having those 2 drafts to send out into the community, we'll also ask for feedback in December, kind of through that winter holiday, and then revise when we come back in January. So this represents where we are currently. That Thought Exchange, like I mentioned, has gone out. We'll also be able to share what we've drafted so far in the committee with the board governance, and then we'll go through those processes of feedback and iteration to reach that January 22nd goal of adopting our calendar for the new school year. I look forward to your questions and feedback.
Thank you, Ms. Colafell. Thank you, Dr. Wirtz. Do I have any trustees with questions? Ms. Richardson, do you have any questions? Okay, I do have one question. So if I perhaps missed the memo, where can I access the Thought Exchange to give feedback around the school calendar for next year, for this year?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So it's been shared in a couple of ways. It came out in our staff newsletter, it came out in the parent newsletter, and it's also been shared via social media.
Okay, so if it went to my spam or if I got a new email address, we can still access it, and anyone watching can go to the Arlington ISD Facebook page and get the link, and it's still live.
That's right.
Thank you. Another question too, I know that January 22nd, if you go back to the timeline slide, if next year's calendar is presented to us as a board action item on the 22nd, will that provide enough runway for board feedback and then perhaps one more meeting? Because I know sometimes we do go ahead and approve the first reading of the calendar, but there have been some years where board has some considerations we want for the committee, and then there would be one more meeting and then it comes back to the board. Would this timeline still work if we were not ready to adopt after the first read of the proposed calendar?
The short answer to that is yes.
Okay.
We would like to get it adopted on the 22nd. If there are specific things that the board is concerned about as we begin getting feedback, then just share those things with me. And when we have that first meeting in January, we can decide whether or not we need an additional discussion item before the 22nd. But we would like to try and get it adopted on the 22nd. But in order to make sure the board has the right input, we can do whatever we need there.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to reiterate something that you showed us earlier in the presentation. Our calendar committee, every year, we put out the application, we get new members, and I think some return. We have the parent voice and the teacher and staff voice pretty heavily represented. And I know this year we had a significantly different school calendar because of our priority, under professional learning, and it has been different for all involved. It's been different for staff, it's been different for parents, and I do appreciate you guys putting out the thought exchange, and I'm interested to see what the outcome is going to be, if we're going to kind of keep that same approach for future years or if we're going to change anything. Is the committee going to formally review the thought exchange findings in a meeting, or is that just something they are tasked to do on their own as individuals?
We have a meeting scheduled for early December to be able to review that feedback.
Wonderful. And I thought it was interesting too. Thought exchange shows you input, and that after you answer the questions, it shows you what trends are. And I just think that that's really interesting. So I encourage anyone, because there's always opinions about the school calendar, right? But I think this year especially, there might be some opinions because it's new. We tried a new approach. So I'm really interested to see the outcome. Any more questions or anyone? Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we will move on to report item D, the 6th grade next steps report. Dr. Smith.
Trustees, I'd like to invite Dr. Champion up. As you know, as we plan for the future, one of the key things that we have to do is we have to make decisions about our educational model, meaning who's in what buildings for what reason, and how do we maximize that model for the future. This is a report. There's no action item, but it's important to note that we need to study this for the future to make decisions for academic programming and facility programming, and Brett's going to lead us through a process for the study.
Thanks, Dr. Smith, Vice President McMurrow, members of the board. Thank you for your time tonight. I entered Arlington ISD, as you know, this summer, and there was an ongoing conversation already about what makes sense for 6th grade. And so we're going to take some time over the next few months to talk about that from our community, get some input, and bring a recommendation to you by June, I believe. Dr. Dalla is here to talk to you about what that process is going to look like, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have about the process itself. Shavir?
Good evening, Vice President McMurrow, Dr. Smith, members of the board. As Dr. Champion said, yes, we'd like to get your input and your feedback on this process in order to refine it and make sure that when we do, or if we do bring back a recommendation, it's in line with what you're looking for. So the overall scope of the project is really to get community and stakeholder feedback on, do we want 6th grade to remain at our elementary schools, or do we want 6th grade to join our junior highs with 7th and 8th grade? The scope of the project really intersects our newly adopted board priorities in every single way. but we also want to look at the student experience. We want this decision to be based on the board priorities as well as the student experience. And we'll have several meetings over the next few months and hopefully be able to bring back a recommendation one way or another by June of 2026. And if we decide to move sixth grade, that would be for implementation the 27-28 school year. So I think this conversation's been in the background for a while. I'm seeing some nods. And kind of you might be asking yourself, well, what brings us to it today? Why is today the day that we're going to start this conversation and talk about the process? Well, we really dug into our student, parent, and staff survey results from spring. And when we dug into those, when we looked at student responses, sixth graders actually had a higher rate of anxiousness than their seventh and eighth grade counterparts. And when you dug into the comments, it was a lot about not feeling like they belonged at an elementary, almost like they aged out and they felt like they needed to be in junior high. When we heard from parents, several elevated that they felt sixth grade was probably more developmentally appropriate with our junior highs. And then when we heard from staff survey responses, we heard that they also felt that there were some discipline issues that probably would be better addressed in the junior high. When we look at our principals, there's no survey results for it, but there's anecdotal data, and I'll split that group into two, elementary principals and junior high principals. Elementary principals say yes, sixth graders are ready. They are ready for that junior high secondary experience. And when we talk to our junior high principals, I oversee the junior highs, and I was a little surprised by the response. They said, yes, we're ready too, and I asked why. They said it's the culture piece. So at a 7-8 junior high, 50% of your students are new every year. It's hard to get to that critical mass to continue that culture of excellence that you're trying to promote at your school. When you have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, then you get to that point where it's 2/3 of your kids are returning, so it's a little bit easier. I'll tell you, when we bring up all these survey responses, I think it's important to note, these are responses outside the norm. So it's easy to find these, it's easy to see these. For everyone that has this view, I'm sure there's an opposing view to it. They just don't come out in surveys because it's our norm. Nobody's thinking of that we're going to change it or look at it. So I want to make sure that we're not, no decision has been made. I think Dr. Smith said that earlier. I think Dr. Champion said that earlier, and I'm going to say it again. No decision's been made, but we do want to look at data and survey and feedback to make those decisions further down. I want to talk to you about what the committee makeup's going to look like. So we want to make sure, first and foremost, we have equitable representation across all of AISD. We have 10 junior high schools. So from each one of those junior high schools, we're going to have a parent, teacher, or principal representation. We also want to get representation from elementary, so we're going to dig a little deeper. And from each one of those 10 junior highs, we're going to pick an elementary feeder that goes into that junior high. And again, we're going to pick a parent, teacher, or principal. Excuse me. From our central administration, we also want their input. And what we'll see is, and I'll show you this a little bit in the next slide, they'll be active participants, just like the stakeholders will be, but they'll also help us prepare for those meetings. And I'll tell you what I mean in just a little bit. And then finally, the student perspective. And I think I'm most excited about this. We have an opportunity to ask students what they feel is best for them. And so I'll give you an example. We have fine art, we have gun, fine arts, dual language. Those 6th graders have already been in our system and in a junior high, and they've already matriculated to Arlington High. So I think that's an invaluable experience for us to be able to ask them what was their experience like, both as an incoming 6th grader that we have right now, and then also as a freshman or sophomore at Arlington High School. And then also we have thousands of other students who have gone through the traditional K through 6 in elementary, and then 7, 8 junior high, and we need to get their input as well. So our meeting formats, I want to, again, go back to our priorities. So each one of these meetings, actually, let me go back one more. We're going to start these meetings in January. They'll roughly happen once a month. But I want to talk about our district priorities. Each meeting will be centered around 1 to 2 district priorities. So for example, research and accountability will be heavily involved when we start talking about academic growth. We're going to want to get their input on the front end with what we're presenting to the stakeholders, as well as they'll just be an active participant because they'll be part of that group. When we look through the lens of talent and resources, we're going to want to partner with human resources and facilities to see, does it make sense to maximize our resources? And every meeting will start with identifying the goal of the meeting. Then we'll present the data set and as well as hear from student panels. We'll then do the discussion piece through the lens of priorities and the student experience. And then finally, we'll close up with the committee informing us of what they want to see next time. I think that's an important piece in this is we're going to present data. We're going to present it through a lens with student experience as the forefront. But then what do you want to hear next month when we meet again? What specific data is missing or you feel would be helpful in you making a decision or making a recommendation, I should say. All right, with that, I'm happy to take questions and hear some feedback.
Thank you, Dr. Dalla. Thank you, Dr. Champion. Do I have any trustees with questions?
I had a comment.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Just a second, Ms. Richardson.
Okay.
Okay, first on, I'll come back to you in just a second, Ms. Richardson. Ms. Haynes, can I start with you?
We good? Yep. I just wanted to say, one, I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes out of this. As a parent, I have my opinions about it, and I'm excited to see what the community thinks about it. I also want to say that I really appreciate that the student experience is at the forefront of what you guys are doing and how you're approaching this. And I love that the student voice is being elevated throughout it. So I hope that that continues, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what our students think about this. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Ms. Richardson.
I think that as a trustee, I have a unique view just because I have a students who did the program at Gunn who have done 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I've been able to see firsthand how that can look so different for what my kids versus what peers and other friends' children have gone through being students in the elementary school. So now what I want to see as a trustee is what the data is going to show us. I know as a parent and I know emotionally what I saw and watched, but the data could be very different and hearing other people's feedback. And as Trustee Haynes said, what is the student feedback going to be? Because they are the ones who will live this experience, whatever is happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Mr. Wilbanks.
Thank you, Vice President McMurrow, and thank you, Dr. Dalla, and your staff and Brett for your methodical approach to approaching this topic. I may have a somewhat contrarian view, but I can't deny all the benefits that we could see from moving 6th grade. Emotional, like you pointed out, the fact that 6th grade students can compete in UIL. There's a number of, quote, benefits. However, the one thing that I want us to consider, because I've studied this quite a lot, because looking at our STAR scores versus our peers, the one thing that stands out is our 6th grade STAR scores in both reading and math are significantly higher than our peer districts. And not only that, but those STAR scores, that advantage carries through 8th grade. It starts to trail off. All kinds of things happen in middle school, right? And it seems like whenever you have that transition period, you're going to see a significant disruption to student outcomes. And so how we handle those transitions, number one, of moving 6th grade to middle school, how do we support those? If we were to do that, how are we going to support those students academically to help and emotionally to help with such a big change? Just like we do with when they matriculate from 8th grade to 9th grade. I mean, just looking at the data, I pulled up my old research. If you take the average of, look at all of the elementary schools that have 6th grade in the state of Texas, versus those that have it in middle school, the average of approaches, meets, and masters is 28 with 6th grade and middle school for reading. 6th grade reading. The average, if it's in elementary school, is 36. The numbers are significantly higher for middle school. Well, no, about the same. So it's 28. No, it is significantly higher. It's 28.4 if 6th grade is in middle school, and 39.8 if it's in elementary school. So how are we going to support and continue that advantage of whatever's working at 6th grade in elementary school for those two subjects, and not see a dip in our scores that carries through 8th grade by making that change. So I think we just need to do the research and be very careful when we look at this going forward. I know there's tons of advantages, and I think those probably outweigh, but we've got to figure out how to solve this if we do make that decision.
That's really good feedback. I think we're going to find, right, there's some pros and some cons, and whatever we land on, we've got to be prepared to address those cons. So I appreciate that feedback. That helps.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Ms. Fowler.
Thank you, Dr. Laura. And I'm sure you all have already done this, but do we know for sure that there's room at our junior highs for these sixth graders?
That is a great question. And yeah, I think that's part of us looking at it and partnering. You know, we talked about resource management. We talked about getting with HR and facilities and having them be part to show the community and the stakeholders and the teachers and the parents what exactly could it look like. I don't want to say what it would look like. I want to say what it could look like. And do we have those? And does that weigh into our decision, right? Every month that we have those meetings, we're going to be looking through priorities in that lens. Again, to Trustee Haynes' point, lifting up that student experience, but we do have to look at those priorities as well. So it's something we're going to explore through that meeting process.
Because it's not only the hallways and the classrooms, but you got to think about the schedules for lunch. And if sixth grade is moving to junior high, that means they're eligible for the sports. So now do we have room in the locker rooms and all of that for all these additional students?
Yes, ma'am.
So there's a lot to consider, but I'll look forward to hearing more about it. Thank you.
I'll also add, because I think it's important, the reason we're studying this now too is because we need to, if we're ever going to make that move, we need to plan for it. And as we're developing a long-range facilities plan with the CNSC, we have to have the right information moving forward. So this is going to, while our current CNSC might wrap up before that, we might need another iteration, because a longer-term plan we have to plan for, and if we're going to make the move, we need to make that decision. So that's the reason for the study now. There absolutely may be facility implications that we have to consider.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler. This has all been really eye-opening, and I know that just like the calendar, but even more so this, there will be a lot of opinions on this. I'm really glad that we do have a committee with that good representation. And I was surprised when you talked about the two different groups of principals actually kind of syncing up with, because that actually is something I wouldn't have predicted. Something else I kind of wanted to throw out there too, just for anyone watching, is that the TEKS, the state standards that our students have to learn as required by TEA, they change significantly when our students go to sixth grade. And TEA, in a way, they see sixth grade as a middle school grade level, and it's a big advancement going from fifth to sixth. And so that is something too that makes me think about, okay, sixth grade is a big transition academically. And I know that there are some surrounding districts that, elementary school stops with fourth grade. Different districts do different things. But I love that we have a very thoughtful and open-minded approach coming, because it's all about what is best for kids, and it's what is best for kids here in Arlington ISD. Every school district is different. And like you alluded to at the beginning of the presentation, this is a conversation that has some major history behind it. So thank you for soliciting feedback and creating a committee for that too. Any other questions from the board? Okay, Ms. Richardson, did you have anything else? Okay, thank you, Dr. Dalla.
Thank you.
Our last report item today is item E, beginning of year literacy and mathematics screener report. Dr. Smith.
And the two gentlemen that were just up here a few minutes ago are both going to stay up here for this one, Stephen and Brett.
All right. Good evening again, Vice President McMurrow, members of the board, Dr. Smith. Myself and Dr. Champion were here this evening to share with you the results of the screeners that we gave our students at the beginning of the year for both math and literacy. Just as a reminder to the board and also members of the community who may be watching, we assess our students in pre-K through grades 3 using 3 assessments. The first one is Circle, which is solely given in the pre-K area. And this specific assessment assesses students' literacy in language, mathematics, science, and social studies. And there's also a component in the Circle progress monitoring assessment that includes both social and emotional development of a young child. M-Class is the literacy assessment that we provide students in grades kindergarten through 2nd grade. That specific assessment assesses students on phonological awareness, phonics, reading fluency, and reading comprehension. And then the last one that we use to assess students in K through high school, K-10 really, we use NWEA MAP for mathematics for all those grade levels. And then we use this also for 3rd grade reading, which is something that's different. I want to spend a few minutes just talking a little bit about this assessment because it is somewhat different than the others. The MAP assessment is actually a test that uses what we call it's a dynamic test that basically adjusts students' questions based on how they're answering their questions. So students who take a test who are assessed on a more rigorous question and they pass that question, they get another question that's more rigorous. And it does the same thing with less rigorous types of questions. And basically what the assessment is designed to do is to hone down on something that's called a RIT score. And the RIT score is the level of achievement that a student actually attains based on how they compare to their peers across the country and within the same age group. So to that, it's considered a nationally normed reference assessment. The other thing that's interesting about this assessment is it also provides a growth measure. So students, as they move along the continuum of learning, as they're reassessed, as their RIT score changes, the rate at that change takes place also provides some insights to the instructor about how fast they're growing in terms of the movement towards the ultimate target of achievement. Recently, NEAWA MAP underwent a renorming process where they started looking at how are kids performing across the country now utilizing this assessment. The last norming that took place happened in 2020, and a lot's happened since 2020, including COVID. So they utilized the cohorts from 2022, 2023, and 2023 and 2024 across all 50 states, over almost 14 million students, and utilizing about 116 million scores to re-norm their assessment to try to allow school districts who utilize assessment to really understand how their kids are performing against a new cohort of students that are actually the way schools are existing today. And I wanted to highlight a couple of things that were different that in terms of outcomes, because the way you interpret the scores will be very different utilizing this new norm reference group. So while they're all receiving a RIT scale score and the RIT scores are still on the same scale, the reference group is different. And what we're noticing now with the new norms is that students who typically have received a RIT score, they're typically performing at a higher percentile rank than they did at the same score back in 2020. So here's a visual example of what that looks like. So here, if you look at the 2 bell curves, the one that's black is 2020 norms, and the one in green is 2025 norms. And what you're going to notice if you draw your eyes down to the bottom of the screen, you're going to see a RIT score of 240. In 2020, if you had a 240 RIT score, you were in the 50th percentile, which is average. Today, if you score a 240 RIT score, you still have the same mastery of achievement, but you'll notice the entire bell graph, the entire graph moved on to the left. The entire population regressed. So if you walk in with a 240 RIT score now, it looks like you're sitting in the 66th percentile. So you're in a higher percentile because the whole population shifted down, but your actual skill set is no different than it was in 2020. I think that's an important thing to kind of keep in mind. So here's an example of the way it looks across the RIT scores, how they've shifted across the country when they renormed. If you'll notice, for example, in reading and in math, in the achievement side, which is the actual marker of what they actually know how to do, you'll notice that the scores for the bottom quartile of bottom third of students and the middle, all their achievement scores typically would drop. If you were a high achieving student, those students either stayed the same in math or they got a little bit better. On the growth side in reading, they saw drops except for the top quartile groups of students. In mathematics, however, you're going to notice that they notice growth, which makes sense because when you keep a RIT score and the whole movement shifts down, it looks like lots of growth is actually occurring. So what does that mean for us as a school district? It just means we have to pay attention to what the RIT score actually is representing. We can't take for granted that if you're sitting in the 66th percentile that you don't need interventions, because the reality is you probably still do. And you also have to be careful you're not over-identifying students for advanced programs, because it looks like they're doing better than they actually really are, because the entire population is actually not performing as well as they used to across the country. So what do the scores look like in Arlington? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk through the actual assessment results that we have for each of our grade level bands, and I'll describe one, and then I'll walk through some of the nuanced changes as the grade levels kind of progress. So the first thing to notice here is that we are reporting out tonight what the beginning of year assessment result looks like. And the dotted line that you see is a projected trajectory towards a goal. The goals that the board adopted are always the end of year. So while I'm sharing with you the beginning of the year, remember it's only related to a future target that you adopted. You didn't adopt any goals that were at the beginning of the year. I'm just reporting out actual outcomes. So when students registered for pre-K and they took their first assessment with us in reading for Circle, this year, the cohort of students in 25-26, which is the black dot, 44% of them actually met mastery or met our achievement level of proficiency and of the composite score. And on mathematics, our group was 85%. In kindergarten, our starting point for M-class reading was 55%. And in mathematics, in MAP, our starting point was at 74%. So now one question I want to point out here that you might notice is, well, why are we going down from 74 to 73? Keep in mind, all we're doing is reporting achievement. You set a target of 73, which if you'll notice the year before, which was in red, was at 68. That was the target before where we landed, and so we set a goal for 73. If students come in and they're at 74, of course, our goal is to keep them going. So our intent is to try to do better than the goal that it was actually set, but we're only reporting out on where they started. We didn't know where the starting point was when you actually adopted the goal because the cohort hadn't been assessed at that point. You're going to notice that trend line also perpetuates in a couple other grade levels. In first grade, for M-class reading, we had 53% starting off, and of course, we're moving towards our goal of 69. And then in MAP for first grade, we started at 63%. So you're going to see the same situation in this scenario. The district initially, the end of year results were 54, and we set a target for 60, but kids are walking in at 63. Second grade, 55% for the M class, and then our MAP, we started with 44. And then the last one that's a little bit different is third grade. Remember, all of the targets that the board adopts in third grade are STAR. They're not actually screeners. So tonight, all I'm doing is reporting out for screeners. You don't the end dot that's marked on the line graph, the end point is actually not a goal at all. It's just us reporting out. So you'll notice in MAP reading last year, we started at 48 and ended at 54. This year, we're actually starting at 50, but we don't actually have a line to report because we don't have a goal set there. So that's why you don't see any dotted lines. In MAP for mathematics, our starting point for third grade this year is 38. The other thing that I think it's important to note about these goals is they were set and established using the 2020 norm reference that I was referring to at the beginning of the year, and that's simply because we wanted to show some consistency on how we were interpreting our data from year to year. Now that we've actually implemented MAP using the new 2025 targets, next year our goals will be reestablished using those because now we can find trend lines. So what are we doing to react to these data points and also ensure that our students are achieving? We've been focused squarely on our early literacy priorities this year and in mathematics, specifically by embedding our professional learning opportunities throughout our calendar years and also providing coaching at the schools. We've really tried to focus on that using a wraparound approach, meaning not just providing instruction and professional learning to teachers in the classroom, but also training principals, APs, and coaches on how to not only implement the things that we're learning in our professional learning, but then how do you leverage the data points that we're talking about tonight to make important decisions about how to provide individualized instructions to students in the classroom. We also are implementing prescriptive lesson plans to students, individual students, based on the data. So one of the things that we have access to based on the platforms we use to assess students is we do progress monitoring. And progress monitoring on a specific schedule allows us to see where the deficits continue to persist for specific students, and very concrete prescriptive lessons can be provided to those students to address those deficits, and then they can be reassessed as they go to see if those are actually closing the gaps. We also have, of course, extended learning in both reading and mathematics tutoring, and then we have targeted support that's being provided to classrooms from CNI, instructional facilitators, and also behavior interventionists, as well as supports that are happening within the PLCs. And then finally, we have a couple of other important points. We have individualized targeted campus support plans that really structure the way that we provide support to individual campuses that address their unique needs. And then we're working with the Bailey Education Group, which is a new group that we've contracted with to provide really targeted coaching to individual teachers in all grades, K through, well, actually all the upper grades even at the schools where we are targeting this intervention. So that's where we are right now at the beginning of the year, and we welcome any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Wirtz. Any trustees with questions or comments? Mr. Wilbanks.
Thank you, Vice President. Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Wirtz. If we could you connect the dots between the first part of your presentation when talking about NWEA map and some of the results we saw? Can we look at the third grade math?
Yes.
Okay. Or you can even go, well, let's start here. So you said that this is with the old or the new?
The targets are based on 2020 reference.
Okay,
yeah.
So we're able to recalculate based on 2020.
Right. But
so these are all apples to apples.
That's correct.
So have we identified why our third grade math scores are starting out significantly lower than the previous years?
So what we would do, the cohort for mathematics that ended last year, for example, it was 45%, and then this year when they're starting in third grade, it's 38% for math. The important thing to make the connection to your question from the beginning of the presentation is the RIT score on the scale of achievement is the same. So if you were a 240 in 2020 and you're a 240 in 2025, what you actually know is the same. So to give context to your question here, what it basically is saying is the students as they're entering in third grade are lower than the cohort that came before them. It doesn't necessarily mean that the achievement is because of a 2020 RIT. It just means that they're actually lower. So what we have to do is understand when we look at the data, what are the specific deficits in their mathematics instruction that have to be addressed and at which pace so that they can increase their growth over time. But it's a cohort that's actually achieving lower at the beginning of the year than their prior cohort.
Yeah. Go back a couple of slides. And so on these, we're seeing great progress starting out beginning of the year. Just looking at the MAP scores. In grades 1, so we're doing something right there. Grade 2, I think it's the same. We go to, you start to see that drop. And so I'm a little.
Well, the other thing that's important.
Have we identified root cause of why we're starting to see a drop?
Well, which part are you talking about? The beginning of the year or the end of the year?
Well,
the reason why you see sometimes drop from beginning of the year to the end of the year is achievement declined, but what they're actually being assessed on at the beginning of the year is very different than what's actually being assessed on at the end of the year. So the rigor of the assessment of BOY is a lot less rigorous than what you anticipate to see at the end of year, which is why some of the scores actually, what we typically see with MAP is you don't see like big swings because of the way the assessment happens. In terms of like where the deficit is across the district between students that are in one cohort like second grade and students that are moving to third grade, and where the deficit has to be, it's individualized by campus. So we're focused on, like when I talked about, for example, the kinds of professional learning we're providing teachers, we're focused really squarely on three main components: the research-based instructional practices and how those are leveraged to do problem solving in the classroom, and then how we're delivering instruction that moves from the concrete all the way to the abstract. So we've been providing instruction to teachers in professional learning in the last 4 sessions specifically around those topics to try to address the kind of instruction that's happening in the classroom in mathematics to fill the gaps. But when there's a deficit between specific groups of students, individually, it's school by school.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Ms. Richardson, did you have any questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Wirtz.
You're welcome.
We'll now move on to our action items for the evening. We have 4 items for consideration, starting with item A, the approval of targeted improvement plans, TIPS, and turnaround plans, TAPS. Dr. Smith?
Trustees, what I would like to do is I'd like to ask you to actually table this item until the next meeting. We'd like to make a couple of checks on a couple of things, and so we will be bringing this back to you on November the 20th.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Smith. We'll now move on to item B, to consider approval of the 2025-2026 internal audit plan. Dr. Smith.
Our interim chief internal auditor, I almost said financial CFO, so sorry, Noberto, and sorry, Alexis. Alexis Palacios is coming to present to y'all tonight.
Good evening, Vice President McMurrow, members of the board, and Dr. Smith. I come before you today to present the proposed fiscal year 26 audit plan for your approval in accordance with the Institute of Internal Audit Standards and Board Policy CFC Local, which collectively outlines that we have to bring to you, forward to you, and present to y'all and Cabinet what our work schedule is going to look like for the year with the current staff that we have. The purpose of our annual audit plan is to, like I said, outline the work for our department for the year, and it ensures our resources are focused where they will add the most value to the district's governance, risk management, and internal controls. The ultimate goal is that we not only support the board and the district's priorities, but to also strengthen trust and accountability throughout the district. So that way, we want to do our part so that the district is continuing to deliver on its mission to serve students and families. So to ensure that our plan was comprehensive and responsive, we used the following factors in no particular order. We looked at legal and compliance requirements, what's the district's priorities, risk assessments, requests for support from staff, resources and our capabilities, and what value is going to be added to the district and what the district's needs are. So what we did is we started by doing a risk assessment by defining what our audit universe was, and then establishing those associated risks. And to achieve that, we, again, understand the district strategies and goals, communicate with the board, cabinet, senior leadership, research potential and emerging risks that could be internal risk or external risks. We assess past and current fraud, waste, and abuse occurrences from our hotline. We analyzed and prioritized the likelihood and impact of those risks, and we received feedback from board members and the cabinet. So you might be wondering, what is an audit universe? Well, it's a comprehensive list that could be either departments, processes, or systems within our districts that could be subject to audit. And the risk is a possibility that an event or action could negatively impact the district's ability to achieve those goals, and that could be in the form of financial loss, improper release of confidential information, or maybe even reputational harm, which could be caused by breakdowns in system processes or human performance. So what we did is we scored each of the audit area or our audit universe areas by likelihood and impact to the district. And so as you see here on the chart, the likelihood things that we considered were audit history for those areas, what was the control environment like, strategic risk, and for impact, we focused on financial and budget impact, regulatory compliance, and reputational impact or public interest. So each risk factor is scored using a 3-point scale, 1 representing the lowest level of risk and 3 representing the highest level of risk across each audit area. So here is an example of what we did. We did our audit universe to the left, so you'll have each auditable area. So for example, you'll see, for an example, the first one was 00X. We have our 3 categories of risk areas for likelihood, and each area got scored on that 1 to 3 scale. So we collectively got a likelihood risk score of 7. And for impact, we did the same thing. So you'll see 2, 3, 3, and we got a total risk score for impact of 8. To give us the overall risk rank is what you see there to the right. So from there, we used that to put it on the heat map that you see on the top. So for that certain auditable area, we would have categorized that as a high risk, and it was red. So we're using this heat map to determine whether to translate this into an audit plan. What do we think is the highest grade risk, and what things should we be looking at? So the audit plan is you think of it as a roadmap for us. What are we going to look at? What kind of assurance engagements? What kind of advisory engagements? What kind of audits maybe do we need to outsource? It also plans for time for professional development for the staff, what our administrative functions are, and departmental operations. Each audit engagement on the plan has objectives designed to promote the transparency, accountability, and operational efficiency. We also designed it to remain flexible so we can adapt to new and emerging risks or requests from senior leadership in cabinet or even the board. And so, in conclusion, to look at it as a check mark list, this is what we have done so far to get to today. And so, like I said, we brought it to you to get your approval, and the next step would to implement that audit plan. But I also wanted to take the time to show my team appreciation for their dedication and professionalism throughout this entire process, especially to my senior auditors. They were very, very instrumental in helping with interviews, meeting with people, getting all the data together. And I also want to especially recognize Emily, who's here today to support me. She really did take a lot of initiative during this whole process, and she really exemplified the spirit of our department. And last and not least, I also want to thank the board, Dr. Smith, and the Audit Advisory Committee for your continued support this past year in partnership and guidance.
Thank you, Ms. Palacios, and I know you have an incredible team behind you. Do I have any trustees with questions? Okay, do we have any trustees with a motion to approve the audit plan? There you are. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Mr. Wilbanks.
Thank you, Vice President McMurrow, and thank you, Alexis. I want to thank Alexis and our whole team. They've been working really, really hard since she's taken the helm to really elevate the role of internal audit and the level of professionalism that she holds not only herself accountable to, but her whole staff. And she's also invested in growing her team. So, all with a a goal of providing the maximum value to the district and to this board in our very important oversight function as a board of trustees. I do want to thank all of my trustees that provided input to her, as well as senior staff and Dr. Smith. And I believe this is on consent, or are we voting on it now? All right, and I would just encourage my colleagues to vote yes for the plan, and thank you for your hard work, Alexis. With that, I would make a motion that we approve the 2025-2026 internal audit plan as presented.
Thank you, Trustee Wilbanks. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Trustee Fowler. We'll now move to vote. Trustee Richardson, can I please have your vote?
Yes.
The vote is six in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Trustees, as Alexis is leaving, I just want to applaud Alexis and her team as well. We have enjoyed our partnership with them, and they're doing a great job working in tandem with us to make sure that we're doing good things in Arlington ISD. And I don't know, in many districts, if you hear that from administration to our audit team. So I think that also says something about the working relationship that we're developing. We're grateful for them.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. We'll now move on to item C. Item C is to consider and approve a resolution appointing consultants and directing staff and consultants to prepare for the issuance and sale of refunding bonds. Dr. Smith.
This is where I invite our Chief Financial Officer to the podium, Norberto Rivas, and he'll give you a brief update, and then invite George and guests up as well.
Good evening, Board Vice President McMurrow, trustees, and Superintendent Dr. Smith. As we continue just our annual practice of being good stewardships of the dollar and finding opportunities to refinance and save money on interest, I do want to take a moment to introduce Sam Gill, Bond Counsel, and I'm going to bring up George Williford. He's our financial advisor to talk about the next 2 agenda items.
Thank you, Norberto. Ms. McMurrow and Dr. Smith and members of the board, it's good to be back, and we were able to meet with the Finance Committee recently and discuss this somewhat, and then the decision was made to bring this matter back. And if it's okay, I'll address items C and D because they are directly related to if the board decides to proceed with the refunding transaction. You'll see the proposed team, and this ties to item C, the financial advisor, Hilltop Securities, bond counsel, as usual, McCall, Parkhurst, and Horton, and then discussing with Norberto and looking at rankings and other factors. The recommendation was that Siebert, Williams, and Shank, and they've been senior manager for the last several issues, that they would continue on this, and that given the size, proposed size, a 3-member team would be appropriate. And so Frost Bank and UMB Bank are recommended as by Norberto as co-managers for the transaction. So that would tie or address item C as far as engaging consultants and appointing the team. This is a refunding issue, and that's nothing more than, in normal language, refinancing, analogous to if interest rates go down and you have an opportunity to refinance your mortgage and lower the payments. That's exactly with respect to bonds representing your debt is being considered here. And what you'll see on this page is the maturities and the issues. There are actually 3 issues, pieces of 3, that merit consideration of refunding. What we initially looked at was the Series 2017 at the bottom, and you'll see dollar-wise that represents the bulk. There's $55,195,000 of callable principal at 5% largely. I think there are 4 or 5 maturities that are 4% coupons, so that's where the most attractive savings opportunity is. And then as we got into it, it appeared that at current market rates, the 38 and maturities of both the other issues, 15 and 16A, also merited consideration to be included in the refunding. So if that's the case, you'll see at the very bottom, that would represent $74,855,000 of principal to be refunded. The 39 and 40 maturities of those top two issues don't make any sense. We've done pretty thorough analysis, and there's really no savings attributable to those. And if rates were to edge back up, it's very likely that the 15 and 16s might fall out altogether, so that we'd just be looking again at that $55 million from the 17 issue. This is the illustration at approximate current rates of what the prospective savings are. You'll see in kind of that middle column that just straight refinancing would produce a projected savings of around $440,000 a year, totaling about $7.17 million. Critical or important factor to look at is at the bottom in red, the present value as a percent of the refunded amount of that $74,855 would be a little over 7%, 7.1. So that's a very attractive level of savings. When we met with the Finance Committee, it was discussed, and what we had recommended was consideration of contributing $10 million. We've worked with Mr. Rivas as to what amount in the INS fund might be truly available to be used, and that's where that $10 million amount came about. To contribute to the refunding, if you'll recall, the board has already given and acknowledged that money that was excess could be used to redeem or defease maturities. Well, if we're going to undertake a refinancing, it makes even more sense to do it in contribution where that money's contributed, and it enhances the savings levels. And you can see that instead of $440,000, the projected savings would be around $1,280,000 per year of debt service. If you move down, and that's $20,600,000. But if you acknowledge, well, 10 million of that is cash we're going to use. If you subtract that from the 20.6, it still leaves 10.619 or 10.62 million. So an additional 3.4 million of interest savings is solely attributable to using and contributing that 10 million in conjunction with the just straight refinancing. So that would be the recommendation, would be to plan to use that cash to downsize the size of the refunding and actually increase the annual debt service savings. What we have here is a sensitivity analysis. The zero in the middle, that's what you just saw at current rates. And to the right is if interest rates were to increase from that, what the savings would drop by. The minimum parameter you have in the order to be considered is 3% present value. But I looked at this and played with the numbers today. If rates are 20 basis points higher, you can see the present value would be about $4 million. But the total with contributing the 10 million, where it was 20.6 on the prior page, would be about 18 million. So the annual debt service savings would drop to about $1,125,000. If it were 30 basis points higher, you'll see that 3.39 million present value, but the total debt service savings using the 10 million would be about 16.8. So the annual savings would still be over $1 million as far as debt service reduction. But be glad to answer or try to explain that if need be any further. What we included was a calendar. You'll see November 6th. If the board authorizes proceeding tonight, then we'd work with the rating agencies. We actually have calls scheduled next week on the 12th and 13th with each of the rating agencies, and that would put us in position to consider that week immediately after Thanksgiving, say Tuesday through Thursday of that week, one of those days, if market conditions were right, to consider pricing the refunding issue and get the deal wrapped up. But with that, I would be glad to answer any questions. And as Mr. Rivas said, Sam Gill, your bond counsel, is here that can also answer any of the legal questions you might have related to the order being considered.
Thank you, Mr. Williford and Mr. Rivas. Do I have any trustees with questions or comments? Mr. Wildings.
Thank you, Vice President McMurrow. And thanks for the presentation. Just curious if you could go back, I missed in the presentation, where are we on interest rates right now, and that you factored, like in that 0 bips center section there, what's the interest rate you're calculating that off of?
That would result in an actual true interest cost rate on the refunding issue, as you'll see in the blue here, of 3.6% approximately. That's the effective rate for the full, all the way out through 2042, the effective interest rate on the whole issue.
Okay.
And that's a very good question. Sam and I were actually at another issuer today that's considering a refinancing. People always say, well, what is the Federal Reserve going to do? Well, last week they lowered rates, the discount rate, but rates across the board went up. It's because they produce doubt as to whether they'll cut any more in December. So it's the market's affected by expectations of what they may or may not do, and then other economic factors and inflation expectations. So they can affect it, but there's so much more. And so the market has been volatile within kind of a range over the last several weeks after it settled into a favorable level of interest rates.
Well, I really appreciate our team's efforts in saving the district interest and providing the best value to our taxpayers. So I appreciate this. Thank you.
Trustees, I would like to just add, is George presented on both topics. We will take both of those items separate for action. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that one before Trustee McMurrow proceeds moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Ms. Richardson, did you have any questions? Okay, so we will now look at item C specifically. Item C was to consider and approve a resolution appointing consultants and directing staff and consultants to prepare for the issuance and sale of refunding bonds. Do I have a motion for item C? Ms. Haynes.
Would you like me to have the formal motion? Yes. Okay. I move to approve the resolution appointing consultants and directing staff and consultants to prepare for the issuance and sale of refunding bonds.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Trustee Wilbanks. We'll now move to vote. Trustee Richardson, may I have your vote?
Yes.
Thank you, Trustee Richardson. We are 6 in favor, none opposed. The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Williford, for presenting on both items. So we'll now move on to item D. Item D is to consider and adopt an order authorizing the issuance of unlimited tax refunding bonds, establishing sale parameters, authorizing the execution of a bond purchase agreement and an escrow agreement, approving an official statement, and enacting other provisions relating to the subject. Are there any trustees with questions or discussion around item D? Do I have any? Oh, sorry, Ms. Fowler.
Just going to make the motion.
Okay, Trustee Fowler has a motion.
I move to approve the order authorizing the issuance of unlimited tax refunding bonds, establishing sale perimeters, authorizing the execution of a bond purchase agreement and an escrow agreement, approving an official statement, and enacting other provisions relating to the subject.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler. Ms. Fowler has a motion. Do I have a second? second from trustee Haynes. We'll now move to vote on item D. Trustees, please vote. Ms. Richardson, may I have your vote? Thank you. The motion passes, 6 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. We'll now move on to our consent agenda. Let's move to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull an item for discussion? Yes. Thank you. Trustee Mike, which item would you like to pull? 11H. Thank you, Trustee Mike. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 11H. Is that correct, Mr. Mike? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of that item?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Wilbanks. Do I have a second? I'll give that one to I'll give that one to Trustee Fowler. Trustees, let's move to, oh, I'm sorry. Now we can continue to item 11H, or do we? Okay, sorry. We'll vote first on the consent agenda with the exception of 11H. Thank you. Trustees, please vote. Ms. Richardson, may I have your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes, 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Okay, Trustee Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I just want to go on record to say my opposition to 11H, but I want to give some context to my colleagues and the administrative staff on why. Back in 2019, when this contract was formalized, the world that we knew then was vastly different from the world we know now. In fact, in 2020, I walked around with a full-on mask in Kroger because we were in a pandemic that shut the world down and ushered in what we call a new era of COVID inflation. Now, if y'all recall back in 2019, this district passed a very large bond in which it estimated the costs necessary to revitalize and enhance the facilities and the needs in this district for the betterment of our children. The voters passed that bond. Unfortunately, due to COVID inflation, the district had to go back to the table, prioritize its highest pressing needs, which meant, and still means, there are needs sitting on the table for this district. Now, if y'all also recall, since 2019, we have been in a state of deficit budget, not due to our own creation, but due to a state funding mechanism that has yet to catch up to the levels needed brought about by COVID inflation. And might I remind you that we as trustees sit on this dais every year and vote to lower the tax rate burden on the citizens of Arlington, some say to the detriment of our budget, but we do it to the benefit of the taxpayer. So that is the lens that I'm looking at or looking through when I look at this action item. And when I see an action item that includes $1.4 million due to COVID inflation, I get heartburn. Because we're not talking about adding additional bond monies to some learning center to help our children learn. We're not even talking about fixing the potholes in our streets so the buses can drive the kids to school safely. We're not even talking about installing viable walkable sidewalks without poles in the middle of them so our children can walk to school safely. We're talking about a park in a city that has 103 active parks. Now, I love a good park, just as anyone else who loves a good park. But when I see a city that's in a budget deficit, we know they are. Our tax rate has increased multiple years in a row, most recently 3 cents. Utility rates have increased. And in the midst of a budget deficit, a school district with needs, tax rate increases, someone decided, let's build a park for the children of Arlington. Now, I know there's nothing I can do about a 2019 contract. That was before my time. But surely there must be something said about including an overage due to COVID inflation. I think there are three things that could have been done prior to this coming to the admin and prior to it coming to this dais. One, the city could have done what our district had to do. Prioritize your needs, which means some needs might sit on the table, but you keep the confines of the cost of the project within that 2019 estimate the same way the district had to do. That brings us to point number two. If there are needs left on the table, then the city can pay for that overage. And I've already confirmed there's nothing stopping the city from doing that. They just don't want to because, as I've been told, the contract is the contract. So 1 and 2 aren't going to happen, so that only leaves number 3, which is the most viable and easiest. That's to wait. Waiting allows you to see what? Maybe the prices go down. Can the city wait? I don't know. If you've lived in Arlington, you may have driven by some empty green lots with signs. Some signs have graffiti, they've been there for so long. Future Park. The city's already shown a propensity to wait. Now, I will acknowledge, when I heard this, that there was a statement that there's a possibility this project could come under budget. And in my heart of hearts, I want to believe that. But I pose this rhetorical question. In your lifetime, how often have you seen a project funded with taxpayer dollars come under budget? I surmise it's more likely that you'll see me obtain an NFL free agent contract at the age of 47. Now, let me wrap this up. For all the things that I've said and for the 100 of items that I have not, because that would really open up a big old can of worms, I oppose. But more specifically, I oppose the inclusion of this $1.4 million. I think it's a waste of taxpayer dollars. It does nothing to further student achievement in a district that still has needs in the very same hallways that I have walked and seen, that we need some upgrades to build better learning environments for the future of our community, our children, who we know can succeed to make us a premier district. And in a land of 103 parks, a $7.4 million 104th park does nothing for student achievement. With that, I yield back my time.
Trustees, I do want you to know, Trustee Mike and I have talked about this some, and I respect that opinion, and I understand that. We, as an administrative team, have equal amount of concern and heartburn anytime we spend $1.5 million on anything. And this is one of those that, upon review and looking at what was signed in 2019, we bring it to you for action because we believe that is what we should do based on our commitment at that time. But that doesn't minimize in any way, shape, or form Trustee Mike's comment earlier, and I do appreciate that, and we've had that conversation a few times, and I just want you to know and appreciate him articulating them.
Thank you, Trustee Mike. Thank you, Dr. Smith. Is there any further discussion on consent agenda item H? Ms. Richardson, did you have anything? Okay.
I move.
Oh, sorry.
I move approval.
Hang on, Trustee Wilbanks, can you push your button?
I move approval of action consent item H.
I have a motion to approve consent agenda item H. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Fowler. We'll now move to vote on consent agenda item H.
Ms. McMurrow, I'd like to amend my motion to, it's actually 11H.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Trustee Wilbanks. There's a motion to approve consent agenda item 11H. Trustee Wilbanks with the motion. Do I have a second? Ms. Fowler? Trustees, please vote. Ms. Richardson, may I please have your vote?
Yes.
Thank you, Trustee Richardson. We have 5 trustees in favor, 1 opposed. The motion passes. Thank you. Up next is our open forum for non-agenda items. Ms. Crossno, do we have any requesters this evening registered to address the board regarding non-agenda items?
Vice President McMorrow, we do have one registered speaker.
Thank you. All right. Yes, sorry. Mr. Kryl, please come forward. Eric Kryl. Okay, I thought I saw him. Mr. Kryl, we'll just call him one more time because I really thought I saw him.
He was here. Michael was
Okay.
here. Michael's looking in the hall real quick.
Okay.
He's gone. He's gone.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to superintendent comments. Dr. Smith.
Thank you, trustees. I think it's 9:22, and I think we need to give Trustee McMurrow some applause for facilitating this meeting, because I think this is quicker than President Chapa did last time. So I just wanted to point that out. A couple of things as I start my superintendent's report tonight. I want to highlight Hill teacher Kelly Pringle, who truly makes learning hands-on and fun. 6 years ago, I think I clicked on the wrong thing. How about this? Sorry. 6 years ago, she created Frankenstein Day, and it's now one of the biggest highlights of the year in Hill's STEM lab. Fourth grade students rotate through 6 spooky hands-on experiments, all connected to the science concepts they've been studying. Those are the kinds of learning experiences that stick with students. Another group of students, about 200 from our junior highs, had a powerful experience last week when they visited the National Medal of Honor Museum for a Character Playbook live event. They heard inspiring stories from veterans, a Medal of Honor recipient, and the Dallas Cowboys tight end Jake Ferguson, learning about service, leadership, and integrity. Speaking of the Cowboys, our automotive students at the Career and Technical Center recently got a visit from Cowboys mascot Rowdy. We've seen a lot of Rowdy lately. And representatives from Ford, who delivered shop shirts for all of the students. Ford has been an incredible partner to our automotive program for the past 3 years, offering real-world insights into careers in the automotive industry. This year, Ford is also providing every senior with a set of tools and awarding 10 students $2,000 scholarships. We also had the honor of celebrating more than 200 high school students who earned the Global Seal of Biliteracy last month. Congratulations to these exceptional bilingual and biliterate students in Arlington ISD. What an incredible accomplishment. I also want to recognize our students with visual impairments who celebrated White Cane Day with a special walk through downtown Arlington. The event raised awareness about the importance of the white cane and gave students valuable real-world mobility practice. A special thank you to Mayor Ross, who came out to support them. Did anyone get a hamburger at the concession stand at Martin's annual craft fair last month? That was Arlington ISD beef, just so you know. The Arlington Livestock Association purchased a steer. I never thought I'd be presenting on this. This is funny. The Arlington Livestock Association purchased a steer raised by a Martin student last year and processed the beef. If you missed it, don't worry. Arlington ISD burgers will be available at Arlington High spring baseball games. Finally, I'm proud of our students for promoting a drug-free lifestyle last week. As you can see, they had a lot of fun celebrating Red Ribbon Week throughout our district. That concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Smith, for that beefy superintendent's report. We'll now move on to board reports. Do I have any trustees with reports this evening? Ms. Haynes.
Okay, so very briefly, because we have Thursday night football that I would like to try to make it to the end of. So very briefly, I wanted to highlight a community partner. Trustee Fowler and myself are wearing shirts this evening that say Prince Bowl, highlighting a rivalry here. Martin High School, Arlington High School, they are playing tonight. And Prince Lebanese stepped up and partnered with both schools to create fun community spirit around a rivalry that can sometimes be heated, but turning it into a fun thing that brings the community together. So Tuesday night, Prince held a spirit night for Martin High School with proceeds a portion of the proceeds going to the high school booster. And then Wednesday night, they did the same for Arlington High School booster. And a portion of these proceeds went to your high school of choice when you purchased. And at the conclusion of the very close game, I don't know what the score is, but it was pretty close last time I looked. They have a trophy that they've created, a Prince Bowl trophy that will be presented to the team that wins. So I wanted to give a shout out to Prince Lebanese. They are amazing district partners of ours, and they continue to show that they are all about students and community and, you know, having fun. So I appreciate that, and I love the shirt.
Thank you, Trustee Haynes. Do I have any other trustees with reports? Trustee Richardson, do you have anything?
Very briefly, so you guys can make it to football. Tomorrow night is Night with Nature at River Legacy, who's also one of our community partners. And my husband and I are actually getting to be the co-host couple for the activity this year. River Legacy is incredibly special to our family. They have different programs there for kids of all ages. They also take school programs there and do field trips and different activities. But one of the reasons it's special to our heart is that they have nature school there. Our youngest attended nature school there for 3 years. And to this day, I will tell you, it is one of the main reasons that he loves being outside. He loves being hands dirty and knowing why things work and how they work. And River Legacy Nature School played such a fundamental part of his upbringing before he started into Arlington ISD that we are proud to be a part of it. Tickets are still available if you would like to come and support it. They will have food and drinks and even chances to eat bugs if that's up your alley.
Thank you, Trustee Richardson. I had a very brief report. I had to give a shout out to our State Board of Education member who represents part of Arlington ISD, Tiffany Clark. She invited me to be a guest judge for the Youth Policy Summit, which included some students from Arlington ISD, but several surrounding districts and even students from charter and private schools that are all local. This was an awesome event where she engaged students led by volunteer group leaders to craft a claim around a recent state legislation that pertained to education policy. So from parental rights to library books, the students they needed to do some research on the bill. They needed to put their own voice in with how implementation is going at their school, and they blew us all away, and they gave me a renewed hope for our future. And just like the adults, the students didn't see eye to eye on every single issue, but it really taught me a lot, and it inspired me for our future. This was just one of the many groups that participated. There were over 100 students. It was a nonpartisan event, and it was all about involving kids to pay attention to what's going on locally at the state level and being advocates for what's best. So all items on tonight's agenda have been addressed, and we have no matters to discuss in closed session. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 9:30 p.m.